Morse. My guest is Thomas Sonnebrand. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Chuck.
Tom, you and I met because you were my Uber passenger in Quincy,
That's correct.
and we both have a great time driving for Uber and Lyft in my case also. And you're apparently a real veteran of Uber. You go back to when it first started in Boston. So I want you to talk a little bit about how you got into it, what it's like for you these days, maybe a little bit about how it's changed, whatever, some fun stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, Chuck, when I started, it was actually in 2013. But I started. You had to go into the city of Boston to get a ride. It hadn't gone outside of the city limits until about
So
two
you mean
years
you weren't
after.
allowed to pick somebody up in Quincy?
Well, there was nobody in Quincy.
I understand.
Nobody had it.
Sure. So you
So
go to the airport or you go into the city?
that's correct. I'd have to drive into the city if I wanted to get any kind of response.
Now, talk a little bit about, I mean, have you noticed a difference in terms, I mean, now there's 6,000 drivers.
And now it's everywhere. You can
And yeah, I
literally
mean,
work.
I've driven in all parts of the state. I mean, I had somebody take me to Waterbury, Connecticut, and I drove out there. So, I mean, it's in all states. What's the deal? What was some of your furthest drives?
Oh, well, my furthest drive, no question about it. I was doing it in Florida. I have a place in Bonita Springs, the West Coast. Somebody had me drive them all the way to Fort Lauderdale.
Wow, that's right across state.
It was wonderful. I picked them up at 7 o'clock in the evening. I didn't get home till 12:30 that night or the next
Mhm.
morning, actually. But
Now, when you were in Fort Lauderdale, did you take passengers?
no, I knew that to get a ride back to the West Coast was probably going to be non-existent. So I simply drove home.
Right, because I mean, like I've gotten rides to Worcester, and while I'm out there, I'll do a little driving. And
It, most drivers, Chuck, and you could probably attest to this, most drivers like long rides. Personally, I like short rides because I like to stay in my home area.
yeah, well, I don't mind them as long as I feel up to it. I don't want to. If I'm a little tired, I kind of hope that they're not long. But I mean, I could tell you that as someone who is an author and who's a writer and who's interested. I'm a student of sociology right now. I love to talk to people and in a way find out what makes them tick and what's going on. And to me, it's a chance to get a cross section of people from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds, in all parts of the city, greater Boston area, at all times of the day and night. I could just turn on the app and bam, people hopping in the car, and and some people like to talk, some people don't, and certainly whatever they want, I'm there to serve. But I've had some amazing conversations with people. I've debated professors. I've had, I mean, it's almost like a confessional.
You're so right. It's a matter of fact. I'm shocked at how many people open up about their love life.
Oh, that's standard Uber stuff.
I mean, unsolicited, by the way. They
Oh, of
just start.
course. I mean, I mean, I only am there as a, it's kind of like, as I say, you're like a therapist or a priest.
I feel like they should call me Dr. Tom.
Oh, I know. It's funny as hell. I mean, I've had some really funny ones. I could tell some people who just, and I've had people come in from other countries who are here touring and they want to go to the Kennedy Library or they want to go to museums. So I give them a tour and I talk about Boston and I give them the history and I like to, act as a tour guide. And by the way, when you do that, you usually get a good tip.
It's funny you said that. I'm a Bostonian. I was born and raised, and I have such pride for this city, and I love Boston. Um, I always say welcome to Boston, and
Oh yeah,
what can we do to make your visit, better? So I
exactly.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yep. And I've just, I mean, I've had a couple of I've never had a problem in Uber. I have had some moments where I didn't feel like comfortable, but nothing ever came of it. People were fine. I like to sometimes, if I don't meet my goals financially, and I try to make $1,000 a week, but if I'm not quite there yet by the weekend, I will do like a late night, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday night.
Right.
And you're driving a lot of people who are a little tipsy, right?
That's correct.
And I have no problem with that. In fact, that's what Uber is all about. I mean, it's cut down on drunk driving statistically. I mean, why drive if you're going to go out? You want to have a good time. Why risk, driving? So Uber's perfect for that.
Chuck, it's even more than that, though. I find that people are taking forget drinking and alcohol, but they take Uber into the city. It's cheaper than parking, and going out to dinner.
Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, the park in Boston is like $25.
It's much cheaper. I find myself taking people into Boston all the time for dinner, just so they don't have to pay the parking.
Of course. I mean, you have to park, the machas and the shmachas. I mean, who needs it? But the point is that I had a girl throw up outside the window.
Oh.
And she got it all over the side of the car. And I was very angry about it. And I told her, I said, look, she's a college girl. I said, I'm going to take her to the hospital. And she was with another girl who said, I'll handle it. It's okay. But I was like, hey, I'm going to step in here and be your father in absentia and tell you to cut the shit. And I really you got to get your act together. Younger people can't hold liquor. It's difficult to know when to stop. And you obviously are not mature enough to do it. Just cut the crap. You're grounded.
I know exactly. And it's so irresponsible. I had a friend I picked them up at Marina Bay, as a matter of fact. And they got this guy puts his buddy who's so drunk he literally passes out in the car. I think, what kind of a friend puts a guy who's so drunk into a car?
No, I've had that happen
too.
And
leaves. I mean, what are you thinking?
No, I had that happen. Actually, it was during a snowstorm, and these friends put this guy in the back seat of the car who was almost, I almost couldn't tell if he was conscious. And I pulled up to his house, and he was not getting out of the car. And I had to kind of shake him and say, wake up, wake up, wake up. And he was so disoriented that he wasn't even sure where he was. It took a while for me to help him get out of the car and get on his feet before I didn't want to leave him there. It's the middle of a snowstorm until he finally woke up and realized what was going on. But yeah, I mean, that can happen. I view that as part of the service. I mean, Uber has fulfilled a great social service, not only in terms of cutting down on drunk driving and helping people get from point A to point B, but it also, you can have a situation, and this happens with me all the time. A young Black woman who lives in Roxbury can now get a job in downtown Boston and get there with a reasonable price in a one-time trip, doesn't have to take about 3 buses and 2 trains and walking. And so it's opened up an opportunity. And I see this all the time in the morning when I drive into the Roxbury, and to me I feel good about that. I think that here's something where I'm actually helping people, improve their lives and get and do things better.
It's not even that, Chuck. That's a great point, by the way. But you know what I do? If a Black person or a Muslim or something, gets into my car, I'm overly nice because I don't like the way people are stereotyping these people. It's not fair. Not every Muslim is a terrorist. It's ridiculous. And I'm overly nice because I want to give the city a better reputation.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, I will always be, I'm always polite to everybody, anyways. And and a lot of times people don't really want to talk, and that's fine. You get people who just put the headphones on now, which is great. And so I'll turn on the radio.
Usually, that's right. Well, of course. And usually the 2 questions I always ask customers is A, is the temperature okay in the car? And B, do you want to listen to anything specific on the radio? And if they don't care, I listen to sports talk, to be honest with you.
That's right. You do your own thing.
So
now, you are, how often do you drive? Do you have goals you like to make money-wise every week, or just?
No.
What do you do?
To be honest with you, I'm really semi-retired, and I'm single and no children, so my expenses are low. No, I drive a couple of hours every day, literally every day. 3 or 4 hours, but I break it up. I don't drive consecutively.
Right. Well, that's the good thing about Uber and Lyft. You can turn it on and off anytime you want. Exactly. I go to the airport. I wait in the queue line. You get somebody who's either going downtown or sometimes somebody's going to New Hampshire. You can never tell.
I've never picked up. I've taken a lot of people to the airport, of course.
Oh yeah.
But I've never picked up at the airport. Was never sure about those.
You don't like the queues. The queue line is fun.
Yeah, not crazy about it.
No, I think it's cool.
Well, I've never tried it, so I don't want to say it's bad.
I would urge you to get in.
I'll try it.
I mean, if there were more than 100 cars, I won't do it because that's too long a wait. But once in a while, you go in. There's only like 20 cars. You drive in and immediately you have a ride.
Well, see, that's what turned me off. I'm glad you made that clear, and I appreciate it. I always thought 20 cars, you're going to be sitting there for an hour.
Well, no. Over 100 cars, and it's never an hour. Every time a plane lands, there's a big rush, and everybody's jumping in their cars and moving out. So it moves pretty quickly, and I like doing that.
I'll try it. I'm glad you cleared that up for me. Thank you.
Yeah, but to me, I mean, driving Uber and Lyft is a big part of my day. I do all these other things. I'm working on a manuscript. There's nothing like going out and taking a few passengers as a way by which I can think through some problems I'm trying to figure out, and then I go back and I'm clearer. So it's just a great thing, and I've urged people to do Uber and Lyft. I mean, I've had professors. I mean, people, CEOs of corporations, get out of the office maybe on the weekend and take a few passengers. It's a real way to find out what the heck is going on in the world, what people are thinking, what people are doing. People have told me about when my daughter was applying for college, I would interview college students, professors. I think I mentioned to you, I had the admissions officer from Harvard in the car.
That's right.
And I'm like, holy mackerel, hello, how are you? I mean, let me tell you about my daughter. No, I just got insights into how to write the essays, how to fill out forms, what they're looking for, all this stuff. The students have filled me in on what the different campuses were like, so I could sort of figure out what might be the best match for my daughter. So I learned a lot from Uber, and I loved going out during some of these protest rallies. It was funny to talk to people. Right. I drove during the marathon. I had a guy get in the car right at the finish line. He had just crossed it, and he sat down. He was so overwhelmed. I said, "Don't talk. Don't say anything. Let me just get you back to the hotel. I see, you're like in shock." And plus I had guys and women get in the car before the marathon who were going to be running, and I could tell who was going to do well and who wasn't. I've had athletes, it's just a great thing. I mean, to me, it's a big part of my day.
And it clearly cures you of any writer's block.
It does, because I'm able to think through stuff and talk to people, and I've had other writers in, and I've counseled them. They've counseled me. I've gotten all these ideas. Now I've even set up a website, and in fact, I'm going to post this video on it called On the Road Boston, where I'm putting in recommendations of different things that I like to do in Boston, and places I like to go, and where I like to eat, and because people ask me all the time. And I'm hoping it might be a little, in full disclosure, I'm hoping it might result in some passive income for me.
Well, Chuck, I'll tell you my two favorite restaurants. On one end of the spectrum, it's Mistral, and on the other end, it's Taco Bell. So take your pick.
I know there's something about those drive-ups, those windows, right?
Well, no. See, I never do the drive-up because you got to eat the taco there because it gets soggy if you don't. So.
Well, I'm trying to lose weight, so just for anyone who's in my shoes, I'll tell you that if you really feel you have to go to McDonald's, and I'm not recommending you do, but everybody once in a while does, whether they admit it or not, order the chicken sandwich that's not the fried, but the clean breaded chicken, the unbreaded chicken. Instead of French fries, you could get apple slices, and to drink, get unsweetened iced tea.
Who would have ever thought they'd go healthy?
Yeah, I mean, but if you order right, then you can get into the right habits. And for Dunkin' Donuts, they have these little wraps with just egg and cheese. I don't get the meat. I just get the egg and cheese on the wrap, and like in my case, decaf. But you can do it without putting on the pounds if you're careful.
Oh man, if I walked, first of all, I'm not a coffee drinker.
Okay.
I'm a Diet Coke-aholic. So I
Oh,
gotta have my Diet Coke. But if I walked into Dunkin' Donuts, the cinnamon buns, those cinnamon buns are my favorite.
oh, please. Anyways, but I've kind of wanted to try driving in New York, but I don't think it's possible.
No, as a matter of fact, I've driven in Providence or Rhode Island.
Oh, I have too, and in Manchester, New Hampshire.
I would never want to drive in New York only because to try to find that one person, and they've got to also find you in a crowd of.
Oh, it's very tricky, yeah.
That would be frustrating. So.
Oh, I would love to drive in New York, but the problem is that New York has its own rules. I understand, at least as far as Uber goes, they have control over it. You have to have a license, a New York plate. You have to have a New York this, a New York that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think that's true. I was going to ask you if you know something about this, because someone told me that you can drive Lyft in New York without that.
Well, that's what I was just about to say, Chuck. Here's the problem. I think you'd have to cancel your Boston to get New York, because when I drive in Florida, I can't be registered in Boston.
Okay.
So
well,
with Lyft, you can drive anywhere at any time.
But can you drive though in New York with all of their rules?
Oh no, that's different. That's
yeah. You see, they have their own, especially Manhattan. I don't think anyone can just turn an app on in Manhattan. You'd get in big trouble.
And I'm guessing there's a way they can block it.
Well, they can. I mean, they do with Uber. I tried turning on Uber, and that was blocked. But I also turned on Lyft, and that wasn't blocked. So it made me think, oh, okay. I don't know. Whatever.
I've never thought about driving in New York. I'm not sure I ever want to.
Well, I'd like to. My wife is from New York. We go down there. So to me, it's a great way to get out of that house and do some driving. Anyways, but Tom, what are you up to today?
Today, I woke up. I'm just relaxing today. I'm probably going to go out and do a few drives after this conversation.
Great. Yeah, I've heard somebody also told me that they drove in Provincetown.
Interesting.
Did you tell me this? There was a passenger who told me this because he was taking the ferry from Boston to Provincetown. He said you go there, the driver makes a ton of money. There's the only person out there. You get, the gays and lesbians, and you get everyone else, the tourists, and you just shuttle them back and forth between the dock and their places, and they give all those tips, and they're like, oh, it's so nice that you're out here doing this. And he pockets, big money.
Well, especially if you take a ferry to P-Town, but your destination is Truro, you're going to need a ride.
That's right. I also heard the same thing is true with a guy who told me that he drove Martha's Vineyard.
I've been on the Vineyard. Sure, I've taken it on the Vineyard.
Did you?
Absolutely. The Vineyard is definitely a fun place to drive. You're not going to have too far to go, though. That's for sure.
Well, the problem with that is that it's so expensive to stay there.
It's expensive, and you can run into traffic. I mean, believe it or not, they can have some horrible traffic on the main streets of Edgartown, Oak Bluffs, Vineyard Haven.
Yeah, I'm sure that must be very stressful.
But
anyways, Thomas, but I think Uber has changed slightly over the years in that they've nickeled and dimed us a bit here and there.
They have, yes.
And it's not quite what it was. I remember when I started, they'd have you could get a $300 bonus if you did X number of rides, which I used to do. And then it dropped to maybe 100 to 200. Recently, they basically have gotten rid of the whole thing. So I actually like that. I mean, to me, that's a challenge. I look at it as a game. If I get 50 rides, so I actually will stay out a little longer to get to that. But now they don't do it, so I don't pay attention. I just do both Uber and Lyft.
No, it was a great promotion, and it was a great personal challenge.
Yeah,
you had something to work for.
Yeah, that's right. To me, it was like a game.
Exactly.
I was like playing a board game. It's like I want to move this, and so I used to be into that. So I think that they've made a mistake by getting rid of that. I don't know if if they think they're saving a few bucks.
Well, clearly they don't need to pay out that kind of money, and I think that's probably one of the reasons.
Well, in the long run, I think that they're making a mistake because I think people are not going to drive for them as much.
Well, I know people who have driven for Uber and Lyft and who have only done peak times. You get those higher rates.
And I do both. And I'll put both apps on, and I'll go with whichever one goes off first.
Right.
And
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's
no
what I
longer,
do. That's
whereas I
exactly what I
used
do.
to do only Uber because I wanted to get to that goal. So now I do the net result is that I probably drive about 50% less Uber than I used to, maybe even more.
Well, Lyft is becoming. It's always been number two,
Right.
but becoming more and more popular. A, because I think a lot of people find it cheaper than Uber.
It is, yeah, and it's better for the driver. I think they pay a little bit more.
I personally use Lyft when as a passenger because first of all, I find to be honest with you, I find the app just easier.
Yeah, and I think the passenger, the average Lyft passenger, it tends to be a little bit more female than male, and it tends to be a little bit more kind of educated. I don't want to,
Well, it's more friendly because when Lyft first started in 2013 in Boston, which is when I started, um, they said invite the person to sit in the front seat. They're a buddy. Give them a fist
right.
pump, and they're a friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole culture of Uber and Lyft is obviously different than the old-fashioned cab. It is a social experience if you want it to be.
That's right.
I should say, just for the record, so that anyone watching this understands, that in Massachusetts, and I think in most states, they do a pretty extensive background check for Uber drivers.
Absolutely.
They do a query check. They do, if you have any kind of record as a driver or as a person. And recently, they did this whole background check about anybody who had been involved in any kind of impropriety. And the result was that I think a lot of Uber drivers had their app shut off.
Oh, if you get one complaint, they'll investigate. Absolutely, yeah. They're very serious about that.
So I think that because of that,
I have a 4.93 rating out of 5, so I'm in good shape.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think mine is 4.94. But
you beat me. You beat me.
Oh well, but you have to be careful with people. You are dealing with the public, and I've had situations where somebody was a little argumentative with me, and you have to be very, very careful.
My philosophy on that, Chuck, is agree with everything they say. I could have easily, and I love a good argument, could have easily gotten to it. I thought, where could this possibly go? And nothing good. So I started.
No. It's like
I started to agree.
It's like the way I deal with my sister-in-law. You just have to agree. You agree with everything, and you're fine.
Exactly. I mean, what's the point in getting into a discussion that could end in an argument?
That's right. So, anyways, it's just a little piece of advice because I mean, obviously, I'm hoping that people sign up and drive Uber through my page. So, what the heck? I might as well get that in there. Anyway, Thomas. So, what else is going on? I mean,
well, I just wanted to tell you, Chuck, my background was in the hotel business, and I've been in the hotel, so I know I'm a people person, and I think you felt that when we were riding together. And I love meeting, like you said, and you nailed it. I love meeting people, and I love talking, but you also have to know when not to talk.
Well, that's right, and you have to be deferential. This is a professional situation. You are and you respect people's what you have to sense what people want to do and what they where they want to be.
I've invited people to sit in the front seat, not all the time, but certain people, and some people say no, I'm more comfortable in the back. So
well, I usually have people sit in the back, but sometimes people will get in the front, which is fine. Yeah. But I never invite. I mean, I just as soon not do that. I'd like to keep people in the back seat, but
primarily it's in a share ride if somebody's already in the back.
Well, if you have then you have no choice.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
I've had some really funny pool rides or share rides where you get 2 or 3 different people and people start mixing it up and it can get really funny.
I personally do not like share rides. I find them aggravating because no matter how much they understand what they're doing, they get perturbed if they're the first in and last out.
Oh, I know. I had one young woman who said she was annoyed because she actually used a share ride to go to the airport, which you never do.
Why would you do that?
No, and then she's annoyed because I had to pick someone else up, and I'm saying, look, I'm sorry, Peter, but I understand you want to save a buck, but not when you go into the airport. That's just not how it works.
Silly. I mean, if you're under a time restraint,
you don't
do a share ride?
You spend the extra $5 or whatever it is. and do it that way. Anyways, but I should go. So,
All right, buddy.
Tom, listen, I want to thank you for joining me today. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
If you have any good stories you want to share, I'll put it up on the website and we can do some more broadcasting. This is really great fun. I'm really enjoying doing this.
Chuck, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, Tom.
Take
care. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.